You're watching Slingshot the Podcast, the misunderstood voice, the culture's power. And today we are ready for you. Episode is entitled, This is America. And as many of you know, we take song titles, we sing a little bit of the lyrics. Yeah. Today's episode, This is America, is a song from Childish Gambino or David Glover, you know, however you want to refer to him. Yeah. You a fan of his?
I am. I like him. I think he had some type of hospital scare or something, like some health scare. I can't remember. But yeah, hopefully everything's all right. I got to look that up a little more.
Yeah, This is America.
This is America.
When that video came out, people didn't know what to do with that.
That was heavy. Yeah. I loved it, though. It made people think. That's the problem. We need more material that makes people do some deep thinking instead of the surface stuff. I think that's the problem with social media, right? They go microwave. They call it the microwave environment, right? The microwave. So everything they see, they just want it quickly and pass by, right? Scrolling. So
let's take a step back, because what we've missed here is Charles Gregory always sings a little tune for us. So This is America, Childish Gambino.
Woo! Let me go right into it.
Donald Glover.
That's my guy right there. This is America. Woo! Don't catch you slipping now. Don't catch you slipping now. Woo! Look what we whipping now. This is America. Don't catch you slipping now. Don't catch you slipping now. Yeah, look what we whipping now. Yeah. Shout out to Childish Gambino.
That's right.
That's
sure. right.
Yeah, for sure.
That's one of those songs that I can't hear the song without seeing the video.
Yeah. You know, don't catch you slipping now.
Right.
Woo!
Well, shout out to Donald Glover, right? Childish Gambino. Another Libra. Look here, Team Libra.
Shout out to Libra.
2 weeks in a row, we've got Libras having the song. All right. You know, he's more than just a musical artist. I mean, he was hired by Tina Fey to do 30 Rock.
Yeah.
Get writer for 30 Rock. So.
Actor. He's an actor. He's just very talented.
Very talented.
Yeah. Sure.
All right. Well, we've got an episode for you today. I'm so excited because we are joined by an outstanding individual who I also call my friend, and that is Angie Hinton is in the building.
Hey, y'all.
Angie is here.
For sure.
And so, you know, we're gonna talk this thing here today. We're gonna talk this talk.
A lot to talk about.
A lot to talk about today as we're filming this. So let's get right into it, because there's so much that we need to talk about. Now, Angie, let's, let the people know who you are. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you? Where are you from? What do you do?
So my name is Angie Hinton. I grew up in Norristown. And I do a lot of things. I have served in many roles. I actually worked at Vanguard for 20 years in an ultra high net worth client facing group, which was interesting. But after 20 years, I decided I want to be more purposeful. So I've worked in politics, had a lot of disappointment there. So then I stepped outside of politics, done a lot of organizing work. I'm an activist. I served as the president of the NAACP in Norristown for 4 years. And right now I do a lot in the youth engagement and empowerment space, really trying to take all that I've learned over my life's journey about politics and beyond to make sure that I'm helping young people understand the importance of, participating, being civically engaged. And so I have the privilege and the pleasure to work with young people every day, which I think is great in the time we're in right now, because grown-ups can be a lot. Adults can be a lot.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, happy that you made it out. Thanks for making the trip.
Well, thank you for having me.
All right, Norristown, Montgomery County.
Yes. Second wealthiest county in the state.
Look here. I'm in the number 1, Chester County.
Oh, wow. Yep.
Yeah. County. So we're representing, Charles Gregory out of Philly.
Yeah, we in Philly. We broke. We broke. It's all good.
You know what? You're not broke, though.
Yeah.
Oh, it's okay.
I think it's just all a matter of really understanding how they're investing the money.
Well, they already charging us another $1 for, I'm not.
$1? Are you about to go to Uber land? We're going. Okay, let's take a step back. Let's talk about some current events. What's going on in the world? What's going on? There's a lot going on. We're filming this in early April, and as we're filming this, Trump has sent out messages in his social media platform saying that he's going to. Let me direct quote this because I don't want to get this wrong. This is a post of his from today. Today is, as we film this, April 7th. Donald Trump. A whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again. I don't want that to happen, but it probably will. However, now that we have complete and total regime change, where different, smarter, and less radicalized minds prevail, maybe something wonderful can happen. Who knows? We will find out tonight. One of the most important moments in the long and complex history of the world, 47 years of extortion, corruption, and death, will finally end. God bless the great people of Iran. Many are saying this is one of the most horrific, psychotic, grotesque messages they've ever heard, coming from an individual, not alone the President of the United States. So here we go. Who wants to jump in?
I mean, where do you start? Where do you start with this, right? I mean, the whole world all day has been on the edge, waiting to hear or see, what's going to come out of. Like, literally, we live on Twitter.
Yeah.
Or, I'm sorry, Truth. So, it's just sad. Since that, there's been an update, but I'll let us get to that in the show. But but I just think it's sad because, like as a person that works with young people, I mean, to live in day to day where, you see these types of things coming out. I mean, what are we supposed to tell the children?
Yeah.
Right? What do we tell them about how to conduct themselves? Right. And so it's very concerning for me. And I think most people, like I said, all day have been kind of literally, it's dominated all aspects of the news all day.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if I'll say the news because, the media has been very problematic, mainstream media, but I'll say like a lot of independent journalism and, kind of the work you're doing here have been really spending a lot of time trying to understand where we go next.
Yeah. Charles Gregory. Could you believe it when you read it?
Nah, I mean, just
I mean, it's not April Fool's anymore.
yeah. This guy is just wild, man. I think we had this conversation earlier that you just have to laugh at him. It's just unbelievably ridiculous. He's just wow. I can't. There used to be a moment where little kids would say, "One day I can be president," and it was such a prestigious position. Now it's just like anybody could be president. I mean, she's just. I just can't. I'm still trying to wrap my head around it. Yeah. None of this makes sense to me.
My initial reaction when I read it this morning, I'm getting ready to go and do an event with kids today, right? So I read this message. My first reaction was, if I ever tweeted this out or put this on Facebook or anywhere on social media, someone would be coming to my house, knocking on the door to come get me. Right? Someone will be coming to my house, Alphabet Boys. Somebody is coming to my house to come get me. I'm about to rain down terror on a whole country.
Yeah.
Someone's coming to get me. Don't try this on your job, people. Like, you would not work another day if you do what this man did earlier today. So I just find it's unbelievable. I mean, we talk about you have to laugh. I mean, you have to laugh to keep from crying. And at the same time, somebody's got to get angry about this and do something about this.
Yeah. What can I do?
Well, Congress is out of session.
I mean,
right now.
we have people that could and should be able to do something about it, but they've chosen not to.
That part.
So that's also, what's frustrating.
Yeah.
But I think they're on vacation right now.
They don't sound
so they're on vacation, and so then what does it become? And so I guess the concern is when you see, like, the government, right, just kind of either. Word you want to say, just completely misbehaving or just checked all the way out.
Yeah.
Right. And the work that, you do a lot of times is really trying to understand, well, how do we get there? Right. And how do we get people to really participate in something that right now feels so flawed?
Yeah.
That it does. Seems flawed. It is flawed right now. Yeah.
Yeah, but we talked about that when we was talking a little bit about closed primaries, right? If you tell someone to vote and your vote counts, and then literally we have something like what we have now, it's kind of like, why should I even be voting anymore? Congress, Senate, nobody, it feels or appears nobody's doing anything. They're just sitting around twiddling their fingers. Then how do you tell like young people that, yeah, your vote matters? Just go out there and how do you continue to reinforce and keep them inspired to do that? And, I always say that they're so much smarter than we were because they have the information at their fingertips and they're, questioning the machine now, is no longer just go and do, because I said so. They're like asking questions. And so now, literally, they're asking questions. Well, if A plus B equals C, C plus D don't equal Z. Something is wrong right there. Something isn't adding up. So what do you say to them then?
If this would have been a message from Barack Obama, even Joe Biden, right, as they talk about his mental capacity, however they want to talk about that. Could you imagine if this was a message? I mean, number one, we know it would have never been a message coming out of either one of their mouths. But could you imagine if they were the ones that put out a message such as this, what would happen in this very moment? How quickly it would happen?
And I just think, this has been a long-term project.
Yeah.
Right. And the project is long-term project. And so I think, that's something we have to make sure that communities that we come from understand that. Right. When we talk about issues that impact young people like school funding, right? Like it's by design.
That's right.
Right. That certain schools are not getting access to, they have the inadequate school funding issue. But one of the things they're not getting is civics. So they're not being taught how any of this really is supposed to work, right? And how it ties to everything that impacts them every single day.
100%.
Like I was listening to some podcasts and they were talking about, we got to get back to Saturday schools, right? Like for our community. Because other communities, they have their own like schooling, right? They educate one another.
Yeah, that's why I believe the work that you do is so important, right? Because when we think of, how we grew up, they had like, show, this is a bill, they don't do stuff like that anymore. But the work that you do is kind of replacing that. That's why I think it's important for your voice to be amplified a little bit more with the work that you're doing with the youth. Those Saturday schools is cool, saying they're smarter than what we believe they are. And so we need to start thinking of them. And so I'm very adamant about us shutting the F up, listen sometime, and then lead.
Yeah. All right, well, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk more about the disenfranchisement, the disenchantment, the apathy, all the things. So stick around. We'll be right back. You're watching Slingshot the Podcast, the misunderstood voice, the culture's power, at New Millennium Multimedia Studios. You're watching Slingshot the Podcast, the misunderstood voice, the culture's power. And we're back, and we are joined by my co-host with the mostest, Charles Gregory.
Yeah. Peace.
And Angie Hinton.
Hey.
My friend and fellow troublemaker. And we're here today talking all the things. This is America, right? This is America. Don't forget the woo woo. So, we just left you talking about what the young folks are hearing, what's going on, what our president of the United States has been sending out on social media. So I want to get into the impact of the words, right? Dr. King said you got to get the language right. And so let's get this language right, because we're leaving young people to try to figure out what it is that's happening in this moment. And we talk about, your organization, my organization, the work that you do. We're dealing with people who don't want to be involved in this political process because of this nonsense.
That's right.
This is doing exactly what it's set out to do. It is to disengage people from the process.
That's right.
If I see something like this, I'm turning off my TV. I'm putting my phone down. I don't even want to see what is happening because it's just too much. and I have other things to be worried about. I can't worry about what somebody is messaging at 3 o'clock in the morning. I have no time for that. So let's talk about that, because disenfranchisement, suppression of votes is on the rise. And this is really targeting the communities that we center, right? This is targeting any community that needed a constitutional amendment or an act of Congress to cast a ballot. So when we talk about needing to get our folks engaged, how do you get somebody engaged in a process that is just nothing but chaos? We were around young people today, and only thing I can say is all they've experienced for the last, 12 years of their life and formative years has been chaos. So how do you move from that? How do we engage people, and not just young people, but all people? Because there's lots of folks out here, our ages, that are also not participating in this democratic process. So how do we engage people in this moment? How do we get them to turn their TVs back on and pay attention if we're still trusting all of the legacy media? Who wants to kick this off?
Well, I'll say, in my role as the president of the NAACP, and just in general, what I've really tried to practice is leading with listening. Mm-hmm. So really trying to, because all of this noise, right, is what, like you said, it just makes you want to turn it off, mm-hmm. right? But then you will hear people have real problems, right? Maybe they're seeing a disparate outcome in the justice system, or maybe, they're having a landlord-tenant issue, or maybe they want to know why their kids are eating yogurt in schools that doesn't have to be refrigerated. These are all things that are really happening. And so for me, what I've learned is if I can listen, then I can connect the dots for them between that issue and then this process, right? Like, who gets the smoke, right? Is what we like to call it, right? Like, who gets the smoke? So, like, who is the person that should be addressing this issue for you? Right. And then teaching them kind of different things that they can do to hold people accountable. So I come from, like I said, Norristown, right? All kinds of decisions are being made in council meetings, right? And most of them, when you're on, Facebook, people don't agree with. Well, helping them understand, like, these are people you elected, right? And then you need to go to these meetings and make sure they hear how you feel about these things, right? Or if you're concerned about recreational program, no, the school district doesn't provide that. That is, again, something that your council, right, like, should be providing for you. But you'd be surprised how little people know who does what. And then certainly, because again, imagine we're coming from these schools that are underfunded, right? When it comes to literacy, right, confidence in really advocating for ourselves is lacking. So really giving them tools to really understand how to effectively do that, it's very empowering. And, that accountability piece gets people to want to then reconnect back to the voting piece. Yeah. So that's usually how we try to approach it, or I try to approach it in every aspect. Is like, you tell me something that you're concerned with, and I'm going to help you understand how policy and this political process, right, could or should be addressing that issue. Right. But so many people don't know.
So, we were talking earlier during the break about passing the baton. That's right. And so we're all Gen X here, right? So we're Gen X, and we're coming from, our parents were all boomers. They have all the power and the control, really, of a lot of the legacy organizations and others that exist, the power structure. So the baton has been passed, or we took it, and now we need to give it to future generations. What do we need to do if we're going to get some of these organizations that have been in existence for 100 plus years, that are still controlled by folks that are unwilling to pass the baton? How do you make that happen? How do we grab it?
I hate to say, you just gotta wait till they die off. I mean, literally, it's just one of those things where it's nothing. When you have someone who's that powerful and they have that much control, they're fixed in their ways. There's nothing you can do. Maybe create a competing idea, concept, organization, job, career, whatever. Otherwise, you just kind of do, jump in your own lane. One thing I will say, however, that has been very successful and seems to be the great equalizer has been social media and AI. And so you have a lot of young people being extremely vocal, and it appears to be even louder than kind of old ways of thinking. And I think that's kind of like, the goal, to meet them where they are and give them that space to amplify their voices on those particular outlets that they're on. That's what I would think. Because you can't kill a well.
Right.
Can't kill a well. They're already there. So what do? You go to another sea. I don't know. You do something different.
Yeah. I mean, I think they're finding a lot of avenues, right? And I do think the more they do have some sort of support, right, and empowerment, you do see them kind of stepping out, and really being innovative and creating different solutions. But I do think it's a real problem. If you look in Congress, look at the number of people, right, that are literally, I mean,
Hold it on.
we appreciate you guys, but like it's time, because if you think about it, right, like there should be some people that are, that age, but you can't have that many old people in Congress, right? Because some of them they have no understanding of the problems of today.
Yep.
I remember when I used to work in government, and I learned many of the people that are in Congress right now, they went to college, and literally, if they paid anything, they just worked in the summer, and they paid off because we invested so much more heavily in public education.
Yeah.
So to understand, just student loan debt, like how, young people have to live with their parents forever now. You can't measure, them going out and finding their own way. I mean, things are just so much more expensive. So we need younger people that are dealing with today's problems to be able to get in there and be part of the decision making when we're creating, new legislation, policy, solution, etc. But it's hard. They are refusing. Like I get so frustrated because it's like, why don't they groom the next generation?
Yeah, they don't want to.
Yeah.
And I believe that it doesn't have to be, we talked about if or. It doesn't have to be either an older generation or younger generation. It can be a mix of both. That's community.
It should be.
Yeah, because you have a certain group of people that has the institutional knowledge and the wisdom, but then you have another group of people that has the fire and the passion
And the innovation.
So you need all of that. I don't understand why it's this huge disconnect. There needs to be some type of bridge to say, okay, we're a community, we are right, we can work together, let's go.
And you serve your time. You're a public servant. You did your time.
That's right.
Average, retirement's supposed to be somewhere around 65, right? You can get a good amount of your Social Security if you retire at 65. Go ahead and enjoy that retirement while you can.
I mean, but you
Right?
gotta. That's the thing, right? When you
They
look
got
at
full pension and everything too.
and you look at how much
Yeah.
money they are making and the amount of power they possess, and they just feel like it's really hard to step back from. But I do think at some point we have to really, because I always say right now, like, we need something different, right? And so we need to really think about that, because I do think that's a big part of why, when we're looking at our government, they don't seem to have solutions, right? I think that plays a huge part in that.
Or the solution seems out of touch. And that has been a problem too. You have people fighting for different policies where younger people are like, wait, what? We don't, you're talking about, a new generation that before would have never, we talked about when I was young, I want to be president.
Right.
You had people saying, I want to be a YouTuber now.
Yeah.
You would have never heard anyone saying that. Now that's important to them. And so when we talk about innovation, you have people not even understanding the idea what innovation is. They can't grasp that, YouTube is that important to people, or Roblox, or, all of the, you're talking about V-Bucks. People like, what is cryptocurrency? They're still, everything has to be in the bank. They don't get decentralized income, decentralized funds. They
This is that libertarian in you coming out right now.
I know, right? That's funny. I took the test. I'm a libertarian. That's crazy. Or have libertarian views, right?
Yeah.
But I do feel that, there needs to be more conversation to be expansive. You have to innovate. You can't. I mean, we realized long ago that a car don't run on square wheels, right? You need a roll, right? We got electricity when we didn't have that before. We're not using coal the way we use coal now, right? And so we need to innovate. Everything has everything to do with innovation. Like I just don't get it.
It's sad, but I mean, and I think even there you see the innovation. So when you're talking about them wanting to be influencers, right?
Yeah.
Right, or creating their own currency, right? Like
right.
someone very wise once said to me, when you keep people shut out of the economy or of like important spaces where they feel like they have some sort of, I don't even want to say power, but agency, they're going to create their own.
100%.
Yep.
That reminds me of a funny thing. You say that that reminds me of the Netflix and the Blockbuster conversation. Blockbuster was like, we're not changing. Netflix came to Blockbuster like, yo, we have an idea. Why don't you? Yeah. Blockbuster, big monopoly at the point. No, we don't need you. Right. Now look at Netflix. Now look at Netflix, right? And they were young and hungry. Right. Blockbuster was established, and we have a stranglehold on the movie industry right now, the home movie industry. They didn't listen. They didn't want to innovate. And look where we are now.
Well, there's lots to be said about the media. I myself, a trained journalist, right? Yeah. That's my degree, communications, broadcast journalism. A lot of people holding media's feet to the fire in this moment. Should. And yes, they should.
They should, yeah.
And there's responsibility of the media to make sure that the public is receiving the accurate information they need to make determinations about their lives. Yeah. And at the same time, we have legacy media who just seems not to want to hold others' feet to the fire. They want to play both sides. And not every issue needs to have both sides be getting equal time as we used to have. Yeah. So, what do we do about this? I want to ask this question. Where are you all watching your news? Where are you getting your news if you're watching it all? Where are you getting your news, and how do you know that it is reputable?
I only watch independent, really, media at this point. I just cannot. I mean, there's just too much that is not being said in legacy media. And it has so much to do with, like, money, the corporations, and when you see like they're not giving you, and I think this is going back so far.
Yeah.
Like they have been really kind of shaping. I remember years ago I worked at Vanguard, and it was a Black History Month, so we had a little Black person come in, and so it was Soledad O'Brien, and she talked about the media and how they frame everything from the perspective they want you to take. Right. And so then years later, now you see and full well like a story, and you watch it on, and it's like, what happened to the majority of what really happened in that encounter? So I only watch, like I'll say like a Don Lemon or something like that, Joy Reid, who are like journalists, but, unfortunately, because they were telling full stories, they weren't embraced any longer. So that's kind of where I get most of my news from. Yeah.
And that push to where? Social media, right?
Yeah, or YouTube.
YouTube. Yeah. I mean, of course, I like the Young Turks, Al Jazeera, I look at
I watch that
too. But I look at people like me, the independent that's out there truly in them streets. There's certain things like I look at Miss Johnson that can go to the end of the corner and stop a gang war because everybody knew Miss Johnson. I look at the people that's in the streets actually creating. I come from that ecosystem of young independent producers, right? Yeah. That's what We Talk Weekly is about. And so for me, I tend not to watch legacy news anymore. Legacy news actually tried to box us out because they are having a stranglehold, a monopoly on getting into certain places. And so I stopped. I don't listen to them.
Yeah. I was recently in Europe. I was in Warsaw again, and also Berlin, Eastern Germany. And I had no option but legacy media if I wanted to watch the news in English, right? Because everything else was either in German or Polish. So I had to watch CNN International. I had to watch those. And it was rough for me because I'm not someone who actually watches the news all that much. I get my information from different places. And it was a struggle because if I wanted to watch TV in English, the only option I had was to watch the news. Yeah.
But you're smart enough and you're informed enough to
Yeah.
kind of like weed through
Yeah.
all of the nonsense, which and you traveled, you're well read, you do the work. So I mean, I get it. I think that's okay. And it's the other people out there that can kind of listen to something and say, all right, come on, that's BS. Or
Right.
maybe they're so and I also believe because I don't want to, smear all legacy media because I think they have a place.
Mhm.
The problem I have is when they try to act like no one else has a place and they co-opt everything. So yeah. But like kudos to you. You guys are doing the work and y'all know. And I always say this pretty much every show, like your guests and that has actually truly been out there and constantly see what's going on. Y'all do the work and that's important. So platforms like Slingshot is important to continue having people like that on your show so you can tell what's really going on. Yeah.
I think it's also important too, just to close it out, is I think when you watch legacy media and they're talking about these policies, right, they don't really capture the impact they'll have on our communities. Right. And so independent media, places like this is where you're going to get that.
That's right.
And so that is very helpful for people because things sound good when they're framed one way. But until you really understand what that means sometimes and the impact it's going to have, then you can't really make an educated decision about so much of it.
Okay. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back and we're going to talk about what we think is going to happen in this primary election. It's coming up, weeks away. What's going to happen? What are Pennsylvanians going to do? What is America going to do? This is America.
This is America.
This is America.
Woo!
We'll be right back. Stick around. You're watching Slingshot the podcast. This is more than just a podcast. This is a movement to inspire and motivate and mobilize. This is for those whose voices have been unheard, misunderstood, undervalued, and underserved. We're going to talk about sports, culture, entertainment, and we're going to use this to build power in our communities. Welcome back, Slingshot the podcast. I'm joined today by Charles Gregory and my friend and fellow troublemaker, Angie Hinton. Okay, it's election time. As people are watching this episode today and for days to come, we are almost at primary election time. And there is so much to be said about this upcoming election. Now, Angie, I know you probably say the same thing that our organization says, which is, yes, every election is the most important election of your life. We say that every single election.
Say that.
We say every election is the most important.
But this one I
life.
really feel is.
That's what we said last time.
I really feel this one is just because of the point, at which we are when it comes to our democracy. Yeah. And so, it is slipping away. And, a lot of reporting says that many, countries, once they've gotten to this point, it's hard to pull back. So I really believe this is a very important election if we want to continue to be a democracy.
Yes. All right. Primary elections. This is one of these elections that people don't vote in. Turnout is usually somewhere around 25%, right? Yeah. 1 in 4 voters are actually going to come out and vote in a primary election. Why are primary elections so important, especially when they're closed primary elections like we have in Pennsylvania? Well, a lot of people, too many people, think that we vote only every 4 years. They think presidential election years is it.
That's it. Yep.
Right? They think that is it. I can't tell you how many people we come across who are like, oh, what are you talking about? Register for what? I voted 2 years ago.
We just voted.
What are you talking about? So primary election is very important, particularly in cities. You live in Philadelphia, you live in Pittsburgh, you live in places that's heavily towards one political party or the other. That means that the primary election is the general election because whoever wins the primary will likely win the November general election. And when people don't show up, they don't show up to the polls in May or in April during presidential election years, then they lose an opportunity to actually put their candidate of their choosing in office. Because if you give up your power in May, you give it to somebody else who's going to select the person who's going to win in November. So how do we get people to come out and vote in a primary election?
I mean, again, for me, it is really, again, going back to my strategy, which is helping them understand, because you're going to hear a lot of people say they're just frustrated and they are just over it. And what's the point? And I voted and nothing changed. So really, again, trying to help them understand how to change that, right? Through accountability work, I think is critically important. And I do think it's important for me, like I find doing this work from a nonpartisan lens, and acknowledging the frustration that people feel, right? Like there are some people, that usually they don't look like us, that, you have to save democracy. I just saw a Circle report the other day, like that doesn't move people, right? Because democracy has failed so many people, right? So we start with owning that and acknowledging how they feel. But then moving into, again, switching it to become more of a power, right? Like, listen, I understand how you feel. Okay. And I feel the same way. And if you live in Norristown, and you're a person of color, both parties have let you down. But at the end of the day, if you're not voting, you're never going to be a priority, right? So we need to vote and hold people accountable. And, really just showing them, like what I really try to do is show them the disparity in outcomes, right? So I'm Montgomery County, Norristown, very low voter turnout, right? Again, very disenfranchised, marginalized. So many things they're not getting, right? Conshohocken, some of the highest voter turnout. If you look at the economic development, the quality of their schools, right? All of those things has everything to do with them knowing those people in Conshohocken will vote them out if they don't respond to their concerns. If you don't prioritize us, we know how this process works and we will vote you out.
And they get their needs met.
Yeah.
Right?
They get their needs met because they know how to hold people accountable. Right. So, just really trying as best we can to help people also because people are suffering. Mm-hmm. And so if you start with helping them understand how to address even something as simple as, listen, nobody has picked up this trash, right? Again, my school, there's this problem. Well, then, you know what? We can go to the school board, right? And testify. Different things like that, for me, is the only thing. And I think we as a community have to really come together. I like to say moving in silence to educate our people on all of this and really collaborating and working together to help change the narrative and help them understand that this really is the most powerful nonviolent tool.
Right. Yeah.
Right. That is what this is. But when we're not using it, right, then we lose so much power. Right. And that's what I say. You think your vote doesn't matter. When you don't vote, sadly, we live in a time, right, because there's all this corporate money in and all this, that you will never be a priority unless and until you're a threat to them staying in power. And that's through your vote and then showing up at those meetings and holding them accountable.
This is the most important election of our lifetime. 2026 is the most important election of our lifetime. Who knows? Maybe we get to come back in 2028 and say this is the most important election of your lifetime. But if we don't vote in 2026, we may not have 2028.
That's real.
You got to meet them where they are, though. I mean, you can't keep relying on the same nonsense. And I mean, I hate to say it, but the amount of time that it takes to, the integrity and the grit that it took to go on every block and knock on doors. And now people ain't even open the doors for you. You have to meet them where they are. You have to be online. You have to be on social media. You have to get on YouTube. You have to innovate the way, we need a strategic initiative with what we do. Like I keep saying, where is our project 2025? Where is it? We should be strategizing right now and just what are we doing as a community to get together and make a plan to get these people
I think they're out there, though. I think we just have to figure out how to connect ourselves to one another, right? That's what I think is missing right now. How do we coordinate and collaborate together? Because there's people that are doing that work. Yeah. There are people that are doing voter engagement. There are people that are doing, so many pieces, voter registration, right? But we got to come together and figure out we're going to work together in our communities and let people do what they're doing, but we're going to educate and empower our communities by coming together and really coordinating the work. I have tons of resources. Who can I share them with? Right? How can we create, opportunities to work together? Because nobody's going to do it for us, right? And so even this is amazing to be able to educate people through a platform like this.
That part.
But we have to be creative, and like I said, very coordinated, and then just doing our own work in silence, because right now,
Yeah,
you can't be too loud about what you're doing, but
Right.
just that we're doing the work. And so
That's right.
I think it can happen. I'm still optimistic
Mhm.
right now, but I think we do have to let people know.
The slingshot strategic plan. When is that coming?
The street just, we already have one. We have one.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
No doubt.
All right. Well, we're coming towards the end here,
Yeah.
and I'm glad to have been joined by my friends who know a lot and are doing a lot. So thank you both
Yeah.
for the work that you do. We've got to get everyone out here civically engaged. John Lewis, the most powerful nonviolent change agent we have in a democratic society is the vote.
Yes.
It's the most powerful, and we cannot give our power away.
That's
Right? If you don't vote, that's a vote. If you don't vote, you're allowing someone else to make a decision for you and your family. So I hope that
Yeah.
anybody who's watching this today, I want you, number one, here's your call to action. Check your voter registration status and make sure you're still active. Make sure no shenanigans have happened and you've been removed from the voter rolls. Go online. You can go to vote.pa and check out your voter registration status. Make sure you're still registered to vote. Make sure it still says active. Check out your polling location. See if it's moved. Sometimes it happens. And make sure you cast a ballot. And if you are somebody who's watching this today and you're not feeling safe in this current environment and you're not feeling like you want to go to the polls on election day to cast a ballot because you're fearful about who may be there watching and paying attention to you, voting by mail is still an option here in the Commonwealth. So all of this talk we've had in previous weeks about the Save America Act, as we're filming this today, it is not law, right? And so you don't need to have a passport. You do not need to have your birth certificate in order to get registered to vote or to cast a ballot. You show up there to the polls with what you've been doing all these years. You bring your state-issued ID if you have it. You bring your voter registration card if you have it. You bring your electricity bill if you have it. All things that are acceptable to actually cast a ballot here in Pennsylvania. We're having free and fair elections, and we want you to make sure you're participating. So I'm going to give it to each of you to close us out. Final words.
No, just please make sure all the things you just said are important.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to your block. Like, we can start with your block, right? People on your block, make sure they understand the importance of the election. Make sure that they are registered still, that they are still, able to find their polling places. Just really try to, again, we have to pull together as a community and make sure that our community understands what's at stake. And, I always say, vote like your lives depend on it, because
That's
it
right.
really does.
It does.
Okay, it really does. Everything, all the progress that we've made in this country right now is at a point of being pulled back, right?
Crazy.
So, just please, it's very, very important.
That's crazy.
Charles Gregory, close us out.
Yeah. Like, subscribe, and follow Slingshot the podcast. I mean, you're getting all the information here. That's the way to do it. You support platforms like this, stay informed, and Slingshot the podcast.
All right, you can go to pa.gov, you go to vote.pa, either one of those websites will work. Help you figure out what your polling location is, help you figure out if you're still registered to vote, or do you need to actually change your voter registration and choose one of the two major political parties, being Democrat or Republican, so that you can vote on the May 19th primary. You cannot vote for candidates if you are not aligned with one of the two major political parties. They will turn you away from the polls. So please don't show up thinking that you'll be able to cast a ballot. If you are an unaffiliated voter, or you chose to be part of the Green Party or the Libertarians over here of the USA, make sure that you are affiliated with one. Now, you can change your registration status and choose a party. You can always go back to being unaffiliated later. But if you want to vote on May 19th or before voting by mail, you must belong to one of the two major political parties. And with that, I want to thank you all for everything that you are doing, all the conversations you're having in your households and in your communities. That is the call to action today. Keep talking about this. This is the most important election in our lifetime. Have a great day. Thank you for joining Slingshot the podcast. I'm Kadita Kenner, and you're watching Slingshot the podcast, the misunderstood voice, the culture's power.